How did they choose how many bombs to drop? When, where, and to what end? I learned that the word decision does not accurately describe the fraught, inexorable process that they went through. Were they somehow subject to psychic numbing, as scholars have suggested? A few, like Major General Curtis LeMay, the chief of the 21st Bomber Command, seemed to be, or pretended to be, unfeeling, or at least matter of fact. If you kill enough of them, they stop fighting, said LeMay, whose B-29s burned to death at least 85,000 residents of Tokyo on one night in March 1945. But others were troubled, even tormented, though they too tried not to show it. Duty, mercy, expediency, and ending a 4-year war all pulled at them. The problem for these men, the looming, intractable, seemingly unsurpassable obstacle, was that Japan was unwilling to surrender. By the summer of 1945, the empire appeared to be defeated. Japan's ships had been sunk, its cities burned, and its people were on the verge of starvation. But its military leaders, who commanded 5 million soldiers under arms, as well as greater citizen armies equipped with pitchforks and scythes, seemed bent on mass suicide. To attempt to defeat them by invading and seizing territory seemed sure to produce the greatest bloodbath of all time, and the Japanese, or at least their military leaders, beckoned the Americans to it. The Allied forces assembled a vast invasion armada, including at least a dozen hospital ships, but the projected casualty estimates were so ghastly that even the most upright of men, General George C. Marshall, the Chief of Staff of the Army, invited his subordinates to fudge the numbers. Dropping the A-bomb on Japan was a foregone conclusion. That Japan would surrender was not. The atomic bombs would kill roughly 200,000 people. Had Japan fought on, likely many more people would have died, possibly millions more in Asia as well as Japan. 2 weeks after the bombs fell, the Allied Armed Services staged a magnificent surrender ceremony on a battleship in Tokyo Bay, with wave after wave of American warplanes flying overhead. But I wondered, how did they feel, the decision-makers, when the celebration ended and the cheering stopped? What were the complicated emotions of these men, most of them never complain, never explain stoics of their generation, practiced in the art of denial? Occasionally, true feelings, or something like them, would slip out. In November 1945, J. Robert Oppenheimer, the chief scientist in charge of developing the bomb at the secret laboratories of Los Alamos, appeared in the Oval Office and cried out to President Truman, "Mr. President, I feel I have blood on my hands." According to the president's account, Truman coolly dismissed Oppenheimer and instructed that the crybaby scientist never be brought around to him again. Telling the story later, Truman would imitate Oppenheimer wringing his hands. "I told him the blood was on my hands, to let me worry about that," said Truman. In later years, Truman liked to say that the decision to drop the atomic bombs was his and his alone. The reality was not so straightforward. Major General Leslie Groves, who ran the Manhattan Project that built the bomb, once scoffed that Truman was like a little boy on a toboggan careening downhill, that he had little or no control over a process that was already well along when Truman took office and essentially unstoppable. Groves's jibe about Truman is not fair. As Commander-in-Chief, Truman did take responsibility, and if he was sometimes opaque or chose to look the other way, that does not distinguish him from other great presidents who were also politicians, notably his predecessor, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Still, Truman was not the main actor in the story of how America and its allies and Japan came to end World War II. Our story begins and ends with the man who oversaw the building of the atomic bomb and authorized the order to deliver it, FDR's and Truman's Secretary of War, Henry L. Stimson. Stimson is today a largely forgotten figure. He was, in 1945, a rather antique Victorian with the blind spots and racial prejudices of his time and class. He was old.